Welcome to part 2 of an overview of the WordPress Page Editor. In our last video, we went over some of the different page settings and editor tools. And in this video, we're going to dive deeper into block settings. First and foremost, I'll explain what blocks are. Blocks are components used for creating and editing elements on your post or page. There are a few different ways you can add blocks to your page. You can do so through the block inserter that I introduced in our last video. So that was by clicking this button in the header toolbar. Or if you go back into your content editor, you can hit enter and then type a backslash, and it'll bring up a pop-up of your most recently used blocks. Additionally, if you start typing, it'll actually filter blocks that way as well. But for this example, I'm going to actually bring up the block inserter because I want to show you some additional settings that we have there. So now that we have the blocks inserter open, we can see that we have a bunch of different blocks that we can use. Next to that, we have our patterns. A pattern is essentially a group of blocks that you combine to create reusable layout elements. So in our theme, if I click on one of the categories, you can see that we have a few different patterns available for us to use. Next to our patterns, we have our media tab. This actually will display images from our media library, and you can open up the full media library by clicking that button there. Since we are focused on block settings for this video, we'll take a look again at our blocks tab. The blocks are broken up into different categories, so you can find what you're looking for more quickly, or you can use the search functionality on the top as well. To add a block to your page, you can click a block to add it, or you can click and drag it to a specific spot on your page. Now that we've added our blocks to our page, I'm going to just add some content. And you'll see that when we're focused on a block, it also brings up a toolbar. So this first button tells you what type of block you're working on. So in this case, it's a heading block. If we click on it, it'll actually allow you to transform your block into a different block as well. So I could transform that into a paragraph if I wanted to, but I don't want to, so I'm going to put it back as a heading. Next to that, we have a drag button. This allows you to move your block around the page. So you just click and drag to move it around. And similarly, next to that, we have a move up and down button. This allows you to move your block up and down like so. Next to that, these settings in the middle are different depending on the block that you're using. So for example, this heading block allows me to change my heading level. That setting is obviously not available for something like a paragraph block. And if I click on that, you can see that there's different settings already. Next to these heading settings, we have another button that shows you some more tools. And then next to that, we have a button that shows you some additional block options. So these options include duplicating blocks, deleting them if you want to, or inserting blocks before and after. There's a lot of different options you can use. So additionally, on top of these toolbar options, each block might have their own settings. And in order to see the block settings, we'll navigate back to our sidebar settings panel that we took a look at before. We can go back to our header toolbar, click this settings button, and now we can see that our block settings are here. Similarly to the block toolbar, different blocks will have different settings on the side right here. So if I click on this list block, you can see that the settings have changed. But for this example, I'll just go back to the heading. The sidebar typically includes settings for changing colors, changing your typography, so changing different font sizes, adjusting things like padding and margins between blocks. It really depends on the block itself and the settings that we have set. That concludes the brief overview of the block settings in the WordPress editor.